Hello once again, guys. My name is Mitch. Welcome back to the series I'm Turning 30. This is a series where every single week I talk about my life, whether that's something that's happened in the past, something that's happening right now at present, or something that will happen in the future. And as you can see, and related to last week's video topic, I'm going to be talking about my mental health this week. Right away, I want to include just a trigger warning. If there is something about mental health that triggers you in general, I'm going to be, I think, talking about a decent amount, not necessarily in graphic detail or anything like that, but if there are certain aspects of mental health that you don't like listening to, I would recommend you just skip this video. Now, if we start back at the beginning of when I kind of noticed what mental health was, or kind of had this concept that it is different than your physical health, we would have to go back to maybe when I was around 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that area. While something may have been going on when I was younger, things may have affected me mentally when I was younger, I don't think I really realized that it was a thing until that age. And there's not really a specific moment that I became conscious of my mental health and what it was and how I was feeling like in that way. And this was before, I don't want to say it was like popularized, because mental health wasn't necessarily like not popular. I just feel like it was less talked about previously. But when I was around that age, I did feel like a type of change kind of in my psyche and who I was. And again, just didn't know how to attribute that to necessarily anything. But I noticed around those ages that I was becoming less joyous, less excited about things in life in general. Again, I would normally attribute that to puberty, hormones changing, things like that, to be around those ages. But the fact that it continued past that and well into where I am now, I know that that isn't true. That change has become something that's just a part of who I am, and having to figure out coping mechanisms to deal with the sadness, the depression. Full disclosure, I haven't been diagnosed by a psychiatrist for any mental illnesses or anything like that. If we went to my doctors and looked at my medical records, everything would be clean slate. There wouldn't be anything in there that would say my mental health state is fine. So, this is not a formal diagnosis that I've received, just something I feel that I have that I don't necessarily feel like I need to get checked out. In my later 20s, I did start going to therapy to kind of treat underlying symptoms and ways that I was feeling and trying kind of to understand the emotions that I was feeling that I've had for such a long time. And the about year of therapy that I did before I moved to Japan was very helpful. Eventually, I would like to go back. It's just a lot harder to kind of do it here, and figuring out with time constraints and language things and finding someone that is good for me. So maybe if I come back to the US, I'll find another one. But the year that I did do in therapy before I came here was very good for helping me figure out myself and figure out my emotions a little bit more and why I felt certain things. But to go back to those more formative years when this was kind of first starting out, I was really grappling with the fact that I was feeling this way all the time. I didn't understand kind of what was happening to me and why I was feeling this way and why it was such a drastic shift to kind of how I felt as a kid. And then there was this moment when I was 14. Now, 14 was probably the age that was the biggest change of my viewpoint mental health wise. There were two major events that happened to me when I was 14 years old. One of the things that happened when I was 14 was knowing somebody that was close to me lose themselves to suicide due to mental illness, depression, and those types of things. It was the first time I had somebody close to me had that happen to them, and realizing that it was kind of an option and something that people did that, and like, again, I may have heard about it as a kid previously and understood it, but again, no one close to me had done it, so I didn't think it was like, it's one of those things like, oh, it happens to other people, other families, but not my family type of thing. And then when it happened to my family, I realized, oh, like, everybody kind of goes through this. This is just a thing that people deal with in life. And so, yeah, that really transformed my perspective. I obviously got to see how people felt about it, got to see it talked about a lot more, and kind of the, not stigmas necessarily around it, but just like the circumstances and why these things could happen and what signs may be and things like that. And so it was a really big learning experience for me, figuring out more about depression, mental health, and different types of mental disorders people can have. I did a lot more researching and connecting to different ailments, mental ailments. And even after researching all of these things and kind of understanding what it was, seeing what it did to other people, I necessarily didn't, I guess, learn in the most positive way. Or maybe it wasn't taking those lessons to heart enough. And this is the first time I'm really sharing this publicly, that I think many of people that know me might not know about. When I was 14, I also wanted to commit suicide. And I think if you are affected with depression, that feeling of not wanting to be here doesn't necessarily just go away. Sometimes you have a lot better days, and sometimes you have really bad days. But again, figuring out your coping mechanisms and what will help you kind of just push through to the next day is what I've learned to do to get me by. But when I was 14, I didn't necessarily have those. And the only reason that the attempt failed was because I couldn't find a key. Because my parents practiced gun safety, because they had their guns locked and unable to use, and even though I knew where everything was besides the key, I was unable to use them and couldn't go through with it that day. And obviously, I'm glad that I didn't. And again, this might be a shock for some people to hear, but there was just a day when I was 14 that things didn't go the way that I was feeling that they should. And I felt like it was time. And because of just a lock on a gun, I am still here today. And again, I know this might be a shock to some and might be weird to hear coming out of my mouth. I've told a couple people about this, and it's something that I've had to pretty much think about every day. Not necessarily that experience, but the thought of I essentially have these thoughts of depression and these kind of thoughts many times throughout the year. Countless times. I have no idea how many days that I feel this. It would honestly be a rarity if I didn't think some type of those thoughts throughout the day, even right now. But like I said before, the therapy did help me. Many different coping mechanisms that I learned as I was getting older, going through different years, seeing different people talk about it, the, I would say, kind of mental health movement, and seeing there are so many people that struggle with it. Like, for people that say you see these famous people, athletes, come out, talk about their stories and about it not affecting people, it really does. Like, seeing these people that have like completely different lifestyles, completely different experiences, still kind of going through the same things that you went through and are going through, really connects you and helps you feel less alone, I think, and can help you learn how to figure out what your coping mechanisms are. While they may not be the same as those people, you can figure out how to push through day by day. And to this day, I've been blessed with great people that have supported me throughout my mental health states. Regardless of if you knew that I was kind of going through those things, I feel like my support circle has always been very helpful to me for my mental health. So while my mental health is not as good as my physical health, if you've watched both videos, I look forward to strengthening it and making sure that I make the most out of every day and try to help others make the most out of their lives. And again, reference to my other video for my life motto, trying to make people better for having met me. But that's all I'm going to talk about for my mental health, guys. There's nothing really else major or necessary that I think I need to talk about, but I did want to talk about this and put it out into the ethos and let people know kind of what I've been through in my mental health journey, my mental health state, and everything that I've had in my life in regards to that topic. So, thanks, guys, once again, for tuning into another video of I'm Turning 30. My name's Mitch, and I'll see you again next week. Peace.